So, dear friends, we are discussing regarding the organ of medicine, and in last lecture we have discussed the primary and secondary actions. The primary and secondary actions in detail. So, what is primary action? How it develops because of the large doses used in antipathy as well as allopathy. It is the direct action of the medicinal substance on the human being, where the vital force remains in the passive role, and it is directly a action of the medicine. That's what we have learned. Secondary action is the reaction given by the vital force against the primary action, exactly opposite to the primary one, and that's why there is always a amelioration followed by an aggravation. This happens because of the secondary counteraction which develops due to the vital force. When we use the homeopathic medicine, it is given in so minute dose. So whatever may be the primary action, it is negligible in amount, and it used to produce the similar features as which are present persistent over there, and that's why it is replaced by the state which is called to be health, and there is nothing like a disease which remains afterwards. So that is what is called as the secondary curative action, and these all things which he tried to explain in order to explain his hypothesis that why there is a in antipathy, aggravation is followed by an amelioration. Aggravation is followed after amelioration or palliation. Then he wants to explain one more thing. That is the importance of antipathy sometimes in life, and that is only in certain measures. And when it is useful, why it is useful, all those things he tried to explain in the footnote. So it is a big footnote 67, I think footnote number 67. We have to read and understand. And what exactly Hahnemann wants to tell, that also we have to understand with this. So I'll start with the footnote number 67. Only in the most urgent cases, where danger to the life and imminent death allow no time for the action of homeopathic remedy, not hours, sometimes not even quarter hours, and scarcely minutes, in sudden accidents occurring to the previously healthy individuals, for example, in asphyxia and suspended animation from lightning, from suffocation, freezing, drowning, etc., is it admissible and judicious at all events as a preliminary measure to stimulate the irritability and sensibility, the physical life, with a palliative, as for instance, with the gentle electrical shocks, with clusters of strong coffee, with the stimulating odor, gradual application of heat, etc. See, this is very important thing which he is trying to explain over there, and this is most practical aspect Hahnemann have told. What he wants to say, he wants to explain over there whenever the things are very serious, when there is no time to find it out the right remedy, then when a question of death and life is there, that is the suspended animation state which he explains over there. That is the question of life and death. This suspended animation, those who are students, exam going students, for them it is short note topic, suspended animation. Suspended animation is nothing but the state which is the state between life and death. It is the in-between period where there is a loss of consciousness, there is a loss, as if heart would stop, and it never beats. It is as if person is not taking the breath, sometimes in drowning, sometimes because of electrical shock. So in such types of cases, it generally happens that there is no chance to find it out a remedy, because it is not a dynamic disease to start with. Electrical shock is not a dynamic disease. It is an accident. Once if someone consumes the poisons by accident, it is also external. It is a dynamic disease. And in such types of cases, Hahnemann explains it requires a thinking that it is not a disease of a dynamic origin to find it out a right remedy at that moment, but it is a time to act, because it is a question of life and death. And when such type of question of life and death is there, First important thing is that you must act. So if the patient's heart is stopped, the electrical shock in recent modern age, we can call it by the name of defibrillator as an auxiliary measure, which is necessary to bring back again the or to stimulate that heart is very important at that moment. Sometimes it is a strong odor of the coffee, which he explains over there, or a stimulating odor, because of which sometimes stimulation gets and person can get into life again. So that is another important thing which he explains. And all those things when to use when patient is in such a state. For example, in the case of drowning, for example, when there is asphyxia, all of a sudden asphyxia, sometimes it might be because of some sudden shock, sometimes it might be because of sudden mental shock, and patient is in such a state. At that time, what is necessary is to act. Sometimes such types of palliatives, sometimes such types of stimulants which are necessary in such types of cases. And he is explaining the importance of auxiliary measures at the same time. So it is not always to find it out a dynamic remedy for such a case. It is necessary to find it out the solution for that moment. The solution which brings back again the patient into the state of life. And this is too important. Life is more important than the thinking of whether it is palliative or curative at that moment. So when question of life and death is there, you must think about the first to bring back the life again. So he gives the example of this stimulating order and gradual application of it, etc. When the stimulation is effected, the play of vital organ again goes on in its former healthy manner. For there is here no disease to be removed, but merely an obstruction or suppression of the healthy vital force. So what it is? It is the suppression of healthy vital force. That suppression is because of some incidents happen. It might be drowning. It might be a electrical shock. It might be anything which has caused to stop the heart or to stop the respiration all of a sudden. In such types of cases, it is necessary to bring back again the life, and these are the measures which are very, very, very essential. So see, he never explains that my pathy is always right. He explains that you must use the logic. Logic is very important, and this logic is very important when you deal with such types of cases. And your logic should be very active when you are dealing with such types of emergencies. Whenever you have to handle the emergencies, logic should work very fast, because in such types of cases or in emergencies, you should act at that moment, and that action saves the life of the patient. And this is what he wants to explain over there. What he further says, to this category belongs various antidotes to the sudden poisoning. What is this? To this category belong various antidotes to the sudden poisoning, alkalis for mineral acids, Hepar sulfuris for the metallic poisons, coffee and camphor and ipecacuanha for poisoning by the opium. You have learned in the forensic medicine and toxicology the antidotes and role of antidotes. Why it is there in your syllabus? It is there in your syllabus because you must have the knowledge about the poisons, and if such types of poisons are there consumed by the patient, it is necessary to antidote them, because consuming the poison and when it is consumed in material form is not a dynamic disease, and when it is adynamic, the treatment should be adynamic. Material poison require logically the antidote to combat that, to neutralize that, and that's why it is too important to use an immediate antidote to that, and that's why you have in your syllabus the toxicology. and it is our study. We must know all those antidotes because it is part and parcel of your life. You must understand them at least. So he explains over there some antidotes for alkalis for the mineral acids. Then he explains the hypersulfuris for metallic poisons, coffee and camphor, and ipecacuanha for the poisonings by the opium. So all these names looks like homeopathy, but these are used on the principle of antipathy and in large doses because they are antidote for that specific poison. It is not in dynamic doses what he is explaining over there. We must understand what is dynamic and what is adynamic. If the things are adynamic, it should be treated with adynamic measure. So material poison cannot be treated with the help of dynamic. Material poison, we have to treat definitely with the material antidote. So he explains the importance of it while explaining that. Further, he says, it does not follow that homeopathic medicine has been ill-selected for the case of disease because some of medicinal symptoms are only antipathic to some of the less important and minor symptoms of the disease. If only the others, the stronger, well-marked characteristics and peculiar symptoms of the disease are covered and matched by the same medicine with similarity of symptoms, that is to say, overpowered, destroyed, and extinguished, the few opposite symptoms also disappear of themselves after the expiry of the term of the action of medicament without retarding the cure in the least. Then he explains one more thing. For example, a person who has consumed the poison. Question arises why he has consumed the poison. If it is accidental, then there is no thought behind consuming the poison. Then it is really an accident and then it really becomes a dynamic. But the person who has consumed poison for the purpose of suicide, because of some reasons, the disease becomes dynamic. Then the question of dynamics starts. If the person has taken it purposefully, what is the purpose? There might be different purpose. The purpose might be to kill himself. That is the first purpose, to suicide. Second purpose is threatening, to show alarming signal to the others. I can do this. That is another purpose. And all those purposes are nothing but the dynamic. And if he has consumed really the dynamic poison, yes, you have to treat antidote that. That is the first question. But second thing is that when you are dealing with that, at that time, what you have to do is to find it out a dynamic remedy also. Because when patient comes out of it, and if you would have not treated his dynamics, he will again land into the same thing. He will again go for the suicidal tendency, or he might be again do the same drama. So his dynamics should be treated at that time, and these dynamics should be treated with proper remedy. One more thing he wants to explain over there, in certain emergency cases, for example, person is brought to you all of a sudden with the pulseless thing, a gastroenteritis, he has had a food poisoning, and all of a sudden he went into the shop, and patient is there in front of you, and he is pulseless only after 2-3 vomiting. The quick logic should be there. If it is because, if you understand that it is because of the food poisoning, then it is your duty to give arsenic very fast. And if needed, the auxiliary measure like IV fluids is necessary at that time. So such a things we have to work it out. And this is what the meaning of this footnote, the footnote number 67, when it is necessary to use antipathic measures. So the answer is in a suspended animation state, when there is question of life and death is there, and when emergency is there and there is no time to find it out right remedy and to act dynamically, because diseases are dynamic, at that time it is always necessary to utilize the antibiotic. This footnote is the only footnote in the whole Organon. There you get footnote to footnote. There is one more footnote. He has made it by star, mentioned it by the star. And what caution Hahnemann have explained is very important, because this paragraph was written by Hahnemann 250 years back and found to be true today also. We are considering this paragraph, specifically the Maharashtra homeopaths. They ask permission of the for the homeopaths to get the allopathy permission on the basis of this paragraph. But Hahnemann have already mentioned the caution over there. And what he says, let us understand what he wants to say. He has said over there that I have written this use of antipathy only in emergency cases. It doesn't mean I have allowed you to do the antipathic practice. But people will take advantage of this. That thought was also born in Hahnemann's mind, and people are taking the advantage of it today also. So what he says over there, and aid the new sect that mixes the two systems appeals, though in vain, to this observation, in order that they may have an excuse for encountering everywhere such exceptions to the general rule in diseases, and to justify their convenient employment of allopathic palliatives and of the other injurious allopathic trash besides this, solely for the sake of sparing themselves the trouble of seeking for the suitable homeopathic remedy for each case of disease, and thus conveniently appear as homeopathic physicians without being such. But their performances are on a par with the system they pursue, they are corrupting. So what he says over there, he is explaining over there the same question. People will take advantage of this paragraph. They will ask that Hahnemann himself has explained to utilize antipathy. So they start utilizing antipathic measure along with homeopathic measure. The reason behind that was it is difficult to find it out a simillimum. It takes time. It requires intelligence. It requires reading. It requires hard work. Instead of going for hard work, they will find it out a solution, in short, with antipathy, and blaming the me and homeopathy that Hahnemann himself have told to use the antipathy. And this is what is happening with the homeopathy practitioners, or those who have taken the admission to VIHMC and expecting that they will get the permission to practice the allopathy on this paragraph. But this is wrong. Hahnemann have precisely explained when there is a need of antipathy. He has not explained that with each and every case you must start with the antipathic measure. He has very specifically explained that it should be utilized only and only when the case is of a suspended animation. And this he has explained over there. If you are doing or taking the advantage of this paragraph and you start using the antipathic measure, it is nothing but the corruption what you are doing. It is nothing but you are becoming mongrel, sir. It is nothing but you are becoming criminal treason against the divine homeopathy. See how much thinking he has done. He was really genuinely person who was having a logical correlation in his thoughts. He has thought that people will take advantage, and he has written that at that time only. So these are the things one has to understand. So this paragraph is specifically related with the uses of antipathy in practice in certain cases. At the same time, the caution regarding the use of antipathy. We'll continue with the 68 aphorism because we have to finish this up to the 70. But I think it is not possible to complete 70 today. We'll finish 68, and tomorrow's session we'll continue with 69 and if possible 70. These are big aphorisms. In 68, what he says, in homeopathic cures, experience teaches us that from the uncommonly small dose of medicine, aphorism 275 to 287, where he explained regarding the 50 millisimal scale, the most recent potency which he developed while writing this book, required in this method of treatment, which are just sufficient by the similarity of their symptoms to overpower and remove from the sensation of the life principle the similar natural disease, there certainly remains, after the destruction of the latter, at first, a certain amount of medicinal disease alone in the organism. But on account of the extraordinary minuteness of the dose, it is so transient, so slight, and disappears so rapidly of its own accord that the vital force has no need to employ against this small artificial derangement of its health and any more considerable reaction that will suffice to elevate its present state of health up to the healthy point, that is, then will suffice to effect complete recovery, for which, after the extinction of the previous morbid derangement, but little effort is required. Now he is explaining why in homeopathy this ideal cure happens. Why that medicinal disease never remain persistent. Very clear thinking he has mentioned over there. What he is explaining over there, when you use the homeopathic remedy on the basis of law of similars, basically the dose which is used is so minute. If you have used the LM potency, it is so minute and so mild. Even though you would have used the centesimal or decimal also, it is so minute. And if you give such a minute dose to the patient, it will just a stimulation to the original features of the disease. But at the same time, with the help of nature's law of cure, this artificial disease will remove the natural disease permanently. Because we have learned in aphorism number 26, the nature's law of cure, that a weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one if the latter is very similar to former in its manifestations while differing in kind. And this law works. So with the help of your right remedy, right stimulus, just more than a natural disease, it removes the natural disease permanently. And what remains over there is the artificial disease. And this disease is not so strong because of the use of so minimum dose. Vital force, which was in disease state because of which natural disease was produced, now becomes free because there is no more natural disease there. Now vital force comes into activity, and because of very minimum dose used in homeopathy, this artificial state vanishes itself many a time. It will not going to remain. It will not going to remain over there. It will disappear by its own. Or if it remains, the vital force is now become free. Now vital force has a capacity to act against this artificial disease and remove that artificial disease permanently and bring back the health. This is only because of two reasons. First is you have used the law of similars. And second important thing, because of minimum dose used to treat that injury, and because of which we never get directly a persistent disease after giving the homeopathic remedy. So there is no aggravation as such after palliation, which happens in antipathy or allopathy in homeopathy. Whether you treat the acute disease or whether you treat the chronic disease, there is no such type of palliation followed by an aggravation because you have choose the law of similar, at the same time you have to use the minimum dose. So I think we'll stop over here, and tomorrow we'll continue with 69 and learn the 69 in detail, because this aphorism along with footnote, it will take a tomorrow session, and 70th aphorism is nothing but the conclusion what we have learned in the this theoretical part of the organ of medicine. So we are on concluding part of this organ of medicine, and we are reaching to the 70th aphorism very early, and thereafter what starts is actual practical part of organ. And to learn practical part of Organon is very important for us because it gives a lot of pleasure and lot of things to understand. So tomorrow we'll meet with the next aphorism, aphorism number 69. Any queries are there, we can discuss. Otherwise, we'll continue. Any questions? You can put it in chat box. No questions?
हॅलो सर.
हाँ बोल बोल.
सर आपण आता सिलेक्शन ऑफ पोटेन्सी मध्ये जसं आपण कुठे त्या रेमेडीला आपल्याला ऍक्ट करायचं आहे आणि ससेप्टेबिलिटी या दोन गोष्टींच्या आधारावर आपण सेंटिसिमल स्केलचं सिलेक्शन करतो पोटेन्सीचं. तर समजा आपल्याला LM स्टार्ट करायचं असेल तर नेहमीच असं आहे का की LM1 ने स्टार्ट करायला हवं?
नाही असं नाही.
का या ठिकाणी पण आपण तसं विचार करू शकतो की कुठल्या लेवलला त्या मेडिसिन ऍक्ट करायचं आहे, समजा मेंटल लेवल असेल किंवा कुठल्या टिश्यू लेवलला असेल, हे पण त्याच पद्धतीने सिलेक्ट करायला हवं का?
हो, पहिला क्वेश्चन तुम्हाला कुठली स्केल वापरायची हे डिसिजन. First you have to decide whether you have to go for decimal, whether you have to go for centesimal, or whether you have to go for 15 decimal. That is first question. If you are damn sure that you have to start with the LM, then again there is a question why you are selecting the LM, because you want to increase the susceptibility, because susceptibility is very less. You have to stimulate that susceptibility without causing a harm to the patient. So patient requires a gradual stimulus. Most mild potency in your homeopathic is the LM scale. So you are starting with the LM. Now, second question arises, how is the patient's strength? Whether you have to start it with LM1 or whether you have to, and second important, where the pathology is situated. If the pathology is situated externally, you have to start with the LM1. But pathology is little bit deeper, that is at the muscular level. You can start with the LM6 or sometimes LM10. If it is more deeper at the bony level, you can start directly with the LM20, 21 also. So there is also question of this question you have to put into the mind. Where do you exactly want the result, and why do you want to repeat? The two questions should be there in your mind. If you need, if you expect that it is needed to repeat, think of LM. LM is always better to whenever it requires the repetition. So this is too important to know that it is not always a rule that you must start with LM1, 2, 3, follow with that sequence. It's not. It depends upon the situation. So you can directly enter into the LM6 also. Sometimes I'm using LM11 also. Sometimes I'm using LM20 also. If the patient of osteomyelitis is there and I feel that it is needed to repeat it, and it is at the bony level, and I think that centesimal will may cause damage in that specific patient, then I think of LM and then I start with LM20 also. So ultimately it is a part and parcel of your decision with which potency, LM1 to start or LM5 or LM6. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
One more question is that if the patient is on LM potency, can we come back on decimal? Why not? If patient susceptibility is quite good, patient got the strength, and you expect that now that your medicine should act at the more center core, you can go into the decimal, or instead of a decimal you can go reach to the centesimal also. It depends upon the how person reacts. If the person has reacted very nicely and patient is coming into the state of health and quite good, and you feel that the disease is more inner at the dynamic level, you might require centesimal also, and you can give the centesimal also. So it depends. There is no question of making fixed ideas regarding the potency. It is a question of logic which you have to use. You have to think, and accordingly you have to use. So at start of this lecture also I have used the same sentence, that when you do homeopathic practice, what requires is the use of logic more and more. So first, always think what to do. Sir, for neonatal hypothyroidism, some experience. It is same. The way we used to treat the hypothyroidism, in the similar manner we have to treat the infant also. There is no different way of treating that. You have to handle the case in the similar manner, the way you handle the case of adults. So you have to find it out the right remedy for the case, depending upon the presenting features. There is no fixed treatment. You have to take the case, you have to go with constitutional, and you have to approach with that case. This is the way with which I have treated some children, infants also, with the case of hypothyroidism. Any other query?
सर
Hmm.
सर अगर पेशेंट है उसको लिवर अफेक्शन है, फैटी लिवर है, उसको चैलिडोनियम क्यों यूज कर रही हैं और उनको उस पर फायदा भी होता है, ऑब्वियसली बस जो पेन है वो कम हो गया है, तो अब उसके बाद उसको कितना कंटिन्यू रखना चाहिए मटेरियल डोजेस को? अगर वो कहती हैं कि जैसे मैं कभी बाहर खाने जाती हूँ तो मैं उसको एक डोज ले लेती हूँ तो मुझे पेन नहीं होता है, तो फॉर हाउ लॉन्ग वी कैन?
Chelidonium, if any mother tincture acts only on the palliative manner. If patient is settled with chelidonium, find it out what is constitution and give that remedy to the patient, so that recurrence will be prevented by giving a right remedy. So that will be always better to give the right remedy for the patient in the dynamic form, so that it will cure the patient permanently. Giving mother tinctures is definitely a palliative. You can continue, doesn't matter, but how much time you're going to continue. So it is
Yes.
in such types of cases, it is always better if patient recovers, then you give the whatever may be the constitutional of the patient and treat that patient. So that will help a lot for you.
Right.
Okay. So any other question? So we'll conclude today and we'll meet tomorrow with the same time with the 69 aphorism. So 69 in tomorrow's session. Thanks a lot.